Why does the literal director of most of Sailor Moon believe in his heart that he's never worked on a Magical Girl series? Let's talk about it. My name is Ayumi. I have a podcast all about magical girls that has had over 200 episodes, including talking about works that he's done. And I have watched over 300 shows in the genre. That includes stuff that is from before what we officially determined as the beginning of the magical girl genre. So let's talk about this article and its source. So this article is actually a translation of a podcast that Ikuni dropped 10 months ago. I had never heard of it, and this video only has 2,000 views on YouTube, so that does make me feel better about my own reach, but also podcasts aren't really as big generally in Japan anyway. But yeah, it's mostly a cinephile podcast. In this clip, he is talking about the history of what has become magical girls today, and having some understandings and some misunderstandings. So I just want to clear up what he says and also what is correct. So, of course, he starts with Bewitched, which makes sense, right? Bewitched, which is called Okusama wa Majo in Japanese, is also partially taken from a film called I Married a Witch, which has the same title as Bewitched in Japanese, though I will say that the movie is very much the story of how these two became a couple, which is not at all the truth for what happened with Darren and Samantha in Bewitched. He also mistakenly calls I Married a Witch a French film. It is very much an American film. The 1942 film, inspired by a 1941 book, but again, not really much in common with Bewitched as a whole. He also says that Bewitched is a story about a witch trying not to be a witch, which is like kind of true for 5 minutes, but you gotta watch the show for real, guy. Bewitched comes to Japan in 1966, this is accurate, and then we get the creation of Sally the Witch, based on the comic Sunny the Witch, also in 1966. Now, he does say that this is a girl series. This is not true. While there is a girls comic for Sunny the Witch, Sally the Witch's target audience was children generally, and the most popular characters were the boy characters, both Cub and also Yoshiko's triplet brothers, who are menaces to society and need to be locked up. So he is currently using the term witch to describe this situation. Now, of course, we do need to mention that Sally the Witch's Japanese title is Mahotsukai Sally, and Mahotsukai is generally usually a more gender-neutral / masculine term, which kind of has the equivalent of like wizard or mage in English. But, of course, we think of her as being a witch, and she does call herself a witch in the show proper as well. His co-hosts do mention they talk about Melmo, and they also talk about Esper Mommy, which are, later series, but he kind of brushes those off. Both of them are not witches. So there's that part. Then they talk about Kiki's Delivery Service, which, yes, is part of the genre for sure, because it's about a witch. And then finally, they jump all the way over to Madoka Magica. From 1989 to 2011 is kind of a huge leap, but they do that because that series does have Mahou Shoujo in the title. But here's the thing, so when they get to this point, he does define magical girls as being girls with superpowers like Superman, which I guess. But then they jump all the way back over to talking about Sailor Moon, because again, he says he has never directed a magical girl series. So when they talk about Sailor Moon, both of the co-hosts also mention this term. They talk about the term Henshin Hero, or transforming hero, and Sentai hero, which would, of course, referring to the Super Sentai series, which is, yes, definitely an inspiration for Sailor Moon. That being said, it is wild to say that Sailor Moon does not count, or that the transforming hero in that case doesn't count compared to Madoka. So he is clearly contradicting himself, IMO, but whatever. So here's the thing that's really important to mention generally that is missing from this, is during the entire conversation, they do not use this term, but it is a very important term when talking about the genre. It is the term Majokko. Majokko now is kind of fallen out of favor and also has been retrofitted in the modern day to refer to the little witch type characters from the older days. So here's the thing that's really important to note. Majokko actually was the term for the entire genre up into the early 90s. I have a copy of Toei Animation's own Majokko Encyclopedia from 1992, which, yes, includes Cutie Honey and Sailor Moon as Majokko series. So that is that. And of course, if depending on where you are in the world, you might still use the term Majokko. I know that it's still a very popular fandom term for magical girls in Italy, for example. So the other thing about the term Majokko that's really important to note is that Majokko was a term coined by fans back in the day, but was actually trademarked by Toei Animation. No one else is allowed to use the term Majokko except for Toei. If you see Majokko used in other spaces, it is because it is spelled differently. In reference to Utena, he believes that people think it's a part of the genre because there's a witch in it, which is such a weird misunderstanding of why it counts and everything. But then he talks about Wicked being a magical girl, like a witchy school series, which is also a weird thing to claim because there are literally only 3 witches in the whole series. But whatever. Though that does give us a really good opening because I do one day want to talk about how Wicked and the Oz franchise, if you will, this really throws off the narrative of the history of magical girls, which I think is really interesting to examine. But yeah, like, this conversation was really excruciating to listen to because, like, dude, what are you talking about? For me, magical girls, as a whole, if you have to summarize them, is a magical girl is a story of a girl who has extraordinary powers, whether she has them from birth or she obtained them through a special item, it doesn't really matter. And she has some sort of problem to solve using that magic, but also has to learn to solve problems without it. That is, for me, the definition of what makes a magical girl. The magic does not have to be literal magic, so psychics do count. Not only does Esper Mommy count, that's So Raven as a magical girl series IMO, and also, of course, you have, science fiction thrown into it with series like Tokyo Mew Mew and all of that. So, sure, okay, he says that it's not a magical girl series. He can be wrong, and this is not even the first time I've heard someone be wrong about their own work being part of the genre or not. Like, we really don't need to listen to this boomer, honestly. Just because he made a few good series, it doesn't mean that, he's like a god or whatever, right? So, yeah, anyways, if you want to learn more about magical girls or follow up on magical girl news and all that good stuff, then stick around, follow, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video. If you have any questions about the history of the genre, please feel free to leave them in the comments as well. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye bye.